Good afternoon, everyone. This is the first public hearing pursuant to this committee's, the Foreign Affairs Committee's, inquiry into the role of the diaspora in national development. I welcome the persons who are here, and I note that this meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast on Parliament Channel 11 and Parliament Radio 105.5 FM and the Parliament's YouTube channel. I would just advise participants present that any questions should come through the chair, and we are also reminded that when you're not speaking, we want you to mute your microphone, and when you're speaking, unmute and then when you finish speaking. I welcome the officials from the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, and the officials from the Ministry of Trade and Industry. My name is Dr. Maria Dillon Remy, and I'm Vice Chair of the Joint Select Committee on Foreign Affairs, and I am supported here by the Secretariat from the Parliament, and we have the team members from the Joint Select Committee. I will just ask them to introduce themselves, starting on my right. Mr. Manning.
Hi, good afternoon all. Brian Manning, MP for San Fernando East, Minister in the Ministry of Finance.
Minister of Social Development and Family Services.
Good afternoon, everyone. Shamfa Kojo-Lewis, Member.
Minister Anil.
Good afternoon. Happy New Year. Anil Roberts, Member.
I would just like the members from the ministries to now introduce yourself, starting with the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, the Permanent Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I am Rachel Tusa, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. And my colleague will introduce herself, or should I introduce her?
You could introduce them.
To my left is Ms. Erica Fortune, Acting Deputy Permanent Secretary. Behind me is Ms. Neela Ramatwaru. Behind me to my left, she's Deputy Permanent Secretary. And Ms. Simone Young is directly behind me. She's Director of Policy and Planning at the Ministry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The Ministry of Trade and Industry.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Randall Karim, the Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Trade and Industry. I am joined by my colleagues on my right, Ms. Candice Lakan-Singh, the Director of Policy and Strategy, and to the back, Mr. Neville Alexander, Assistant Director of Trade Promotion, and Mr. Kwesi Calendar, Industry Specialist at the Ministry.
Thank you. The Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I am Videsh Maraj, Acting Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts. I am joined by Ms. Shanil Sutherland, Manager of Destination Development at Tourism Trinidad Limited. And behind me is Mr. Damian Richardson, Cultural Officer, TRI.
Thank you all so much for coming here this afternoon. As you would know, this inquiry has been initiated. A bit of background. The Caribbean has historically been defined as the movement of people. Initially, it was the movement of people into the countries, and recently, it is now a region characterized by net emigration. According to the International Organization of Migration data report, trends in Caribbean migration and mobility nearly 1/5 of the region's nationals live outside of the country's territories of origin as of 2020. So we have a significant proportion of our countries that are living outside. The officials, the inquiry objectives are: 1, to examine Trinidad and Tobago's engagement with the diaspora; 2, to ascertain the role of the diaspora in national development, including opportunities and the challenges affecting the contribution of the diaspora to Trinidad and Tobago's development; and 3, to identify the services and support received by the diaspora from Trinidad and Tobago and mechanisms to improve service delivery. I will now invite opening remarks by the permanent secretaries, starting with the Permanent Secretary of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. Brief remarks, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I make my opening remarks, I would like to extend on behalf of my team and my own behalf condolences to the committee on the loss of your member, Minister Lisa Morris-Julian.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Chair, members of the Joint Select Committee, colleagues from the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, and from the Ministry of Trade and Industry, members of the listening and viewing public, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to share the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs role and work as it pertains to Trinidad and Tobago's diaspora and its contribution to national development. The Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs recognizes and acknowledges its responsibility for diaspora affairs and, mainly through Trinidad and Tobago's overseas missions, has had a long history and a strong record of engagement with Trinidad and Tobago's diaspora. In fact, our overseas missions are often the first official point of contact with Trinidad and Tobago for members of our diaspora. It is for this reason, Madam Chair, that the Ministry has been working to finalize a national diaspora policy 2025 to 2029, as this will guide more formal and strategic engagement with the diaspora, with the attendant benefits realized by all stakeholders. Madam Vice Chair, I wish to underscore the Ministry's commitment to fulfilling its mission in this area through the strengthening of diaspora partnerships and the development of initiatives that will effectively engage the diaspora in nation building, while improving benefits to the diaspora through such engagement. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you so much. P.S. Toussaint, could we have brief introductory remarks by Mr. Karim?
Thank you, Vice Chair, members of the committee. The Ministry of Trade and Industry is also pleased to participate in this meeting to examine the important role the diaspora plays in national development. As you know, the Ministry of Trade and Industry bears the core responsibility for driving trade, business, and investment to support economic growth. Within this framework, we view the diaspora as a key partner in achieving the Ministry's objectives and advancing Trinidad and Tobago's commercial objectives. We will all hear later this afternoon the large diaspora markets that we enjoy all over the world, and therefore the Ministry of Trade and Industry, through initiatives such as export promotion and investment facilitation, sees the diaspora business networks as critical to expanding the global reach of our goods and services. On the diaspora side, diaspora communities serve as loyal consumers and promoters of Trinidad and Tobago's cultural goods and services. They usually demand local goods, whether it's curry or pepper sauce. They are a new and strong niche market requiring exports from their home country. We therefore see their role as integral to enhancing our trading relationships. We look forward to the discussions this afternoon and in offering responses to questions that may come our way.
Thank you so much, PS. Could we have brief comments from the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Joint Select Committee. I wish to thank the committee for the opportunity to further the discussions of the role of the diaspora in national development. The Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts is responsible for guiding, regulating, overseeing and fostering the sustainable development and promotion of the tourism and culture sectors. It serves as a catalyst in developing Trinidad and Tobago as a premier tourist destination. We at the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, along with our implementing agency, Tourism Trinidad Limited, is committed to increase and energize the diaspora engagement by creating more opportunities for the diaspora to experience the country's unique offerings. We recognize the diaspora market as a key target group that contributes to visitor arrivals and continue our targeted engagement with the diaspora to encourage new and repeat visits to the country. We look forward to the discussions here today and implementing the recommendations of the committee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, PS. So we will proceed now with the inquiry, and I would like to start with the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. Madam PS, you have talked about the diaspora engagement and the policy that you're working on. Could you indicate as to where you're at in that, the diaspora policy, the national policy on diaspora engagement?
Thank you,
The
Madam.
draft national diaspora policy, where are you with that, as far as that is concerned?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. The ministry has come to close to finalization. We have had engagement with stakeholders seeking comments on the draft policy. We've received comments as far as possible and feasible. We have incorporated those viewpoints, those opinions in the draft policy. So the next phase would be to bring it to a point of getting approval for that policy by Cabinet. And I think we will be doing that between January and February this year. That's the time frame for us to get that approval.
Okay, this is a very important policy, as we are talking about diaspora engagement. Could you provide us with a list of the entities who would have submitted comments on the draft policy?
So it's a long list?
Yeah, it's a long list. Well, just the highlights, and then you could submit just give us a few, and then you could submit in writing to us.
Certainly. Ministry of Education, Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, Ministry of Planning and Development, Ministry of Trade and Industry, most of the other ministries, Tobago House of Assembly, and prior to that, we also had input from all of our overseas missions to get a sense of, to get their view, because they actually do the engagement with the diaspora. We've also had input from the Immigration Division, which is an important element as well. And we can submit the full list to you subsequently.
Very good. Did you have any public consultations on the draft policy?
Yes, we
You did?
we have had public consultation. Some time ago, part of it was during the COVID era, and it was virtually. We've also had, just to add, a critical entity that gave us some feedback, if I may, the International Organization for Migration, which has been a very useful partner, let's call it that, in this process.
Okay.
So yes, we have had.
All right, thank you. So we are looking forward to seeing that draft as soon as it's available?
Yes, certainly, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions about the policy, this particular follow-up?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not quite clear. Is this the first policy regarding the diaspora, or is this a follow-up policy or a fourth draft? Please help me.
Thank you, Member. Through you, Madam Vice Chair. This is, as far as I'm aware, the first national diaspora policy. It has gone through several drafts so far because as we get, over the years that we've been dealing with it, as we got feedback, we would have incorporated, as I said, as far as possible and feasible, those bits of information. We have also recently added monitoring and evaluation element to it, which we realized was an important one. So, yeah, thank you.
Well, the population would love to know then what has been guiding the policy and the work and the unified approach for decades before, because this is not a new ministry.
Thank you, Member. Madam Chair, the ministry has had several, whether it's legislation, policy documents that have guided the work of the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs in addressing issues related to the diaspora. Because we deal with things like overseas, for example, the citizenship issues, we look at the Citizenship Act and we liaise with Ministry of National Security through the Immigration Division. We use the policies governing the rules and regulations of how nationals return to Trinidad and Tobago, what their entitlements are, so that we can provide to them information that would encourage them if they wish to consider returning to Trinidad and Tobago. We use the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations because that also guides the international rules and regulations that we are also we are guided by that because we've given force of law to that convention as well. And other policies that would guide the certificates that nationals would seek to obtain, birth certificates, marriage certificates. We would be the first port of call for nationals who wish to obtain such things. So there are things that guide us. There's also a very old decision that was taken related to repatriation of nationals and what would be their entitlement, what assistance, and if we assist. So we are guided by those several documents and rules. Thank you.
Question, Madam Chair. With the new policy that is coming on board, with the change in climate and circumstances where we have been suffering from brain drain since independence, however, over the last 6 or 7 years, the brain drain has gone up to close to 9 out of 10, 90% of young people who go away to study are not coming back home unless they have to, if they want a scholarship or something, and they have to come back and work. What is there going to be within the new policy to ensure that we can learn how many young people have gone out, what fields are they studying in, and how could we encourage them to come back and help build the country as we're looking for new revenue streams, new industries, and new opportunities?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. This was a consideration in the diaspora policy because we recognize that there is that challenge, and it's not a new challenge, but as opportunities open up, people are able to travel more freely. That will continue to increase. So The policy will help to address this issue through promoting knowledge transfer, encouraging and providing information to the diaspora on opportunities in Trinidad and Tobago for which they are qualified by dint of being citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, by providing information on the process for returning to Trinidad and Tobago, because some may think it's too difficult if they've not been made aware of what the process is like. But yes, it is under consideration, and it is part of the diaspora policy. Thank you.
Hello? Yes. Hi, good afternoon. Could you verify those statistics offered by Member Roberts? I believe you said, what, 9 of every 10 is not returning? Is that accurate, or is there another source that we can use?
Thank you, Member. Madam Vice Chair, what we do have is a sense of the size of the diaspora outside. I do not have that detail on 9 out of 10. So
Thank you.
One of the things that we had talked about on the, in terms of the engagement of the diaspora, you submitted an answer that talked about the overseas missions, that the overseas missions keep abreast of the work of the respective offices. You ask the diaspora and you encourage the diaspora to keep abreast of the work. In other words, you want to engage them, and you're telling them keep abreast of the work by engaging in the different respective offices' social media. Is that how many overseas missions and consulate have social media pages, and the platforms that are used so that these people, particularly the young people that Senator Member Roberts just spoke about, how are they engaged?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. To start with the social media and encouragement to look at our pages and so on, we recognize that for a lot of people, especially the younger generation, that way of getting information and forging a relationship is the most convenient for them. Some of our missions have actual face-to-face engagement. When I say that, meetings of nationals, and again, those meetings are usually not terribly large because people are dispersed throughout whatever jurisdictions we have the offices in. And so social media is a very important tool in reaching out to the diaspora. Of course, it helps increase our reach if people register with our missions. You reach in a jurisdiction and you say, I'm here, this is why I'm here, I'm a student, I've got a new job, or I've just migrated and I'm looking for a job. So social media is an important element of it, and yes, we do encourage them to look at it, look at our pages. I don't have a figure as to the number that have pages. I can get that for you subsequently. But what we are also doing is looking into improving on our registration system, which encourages nationals to register once they're leaving the country for whatever reason, whether it's on vacation, whether it's to take up a new job, moving house, whole families moving, whatever it is. Right now, that system does not capture data that will tell us who is interested in investing in Trinidad and Tobago, in considering starting a business in Trinidad and Tobago, So those are things that have to be included in the RSNA to expand the reach and to expand the amount of and kind of information that we capture from the diaspora.
Thank you, Ms. Member.
Thank you, Madam PS. I do agree the importance of social media. Do you have social media managers at the any of the embassies or missions or so on?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. We do not have social media managers. We just don't have those resources to have such positions at this time. What we do have are officers who would monitor and provide information, whether of whatever nature that has to be provided or shared with the.
But do you think that if there's no one assigned to such an important function, how do you think that will, how will that help? You know, because I think that somehow, if this is where we are going, we talk about young people. A lot of persons in the diaspora, you know, would come through social media to make contact with the overseas mission or to get information. So I think it's very important that maybe a recommendation could be made for someone specifically, because if I have my normal work and I'm just assigned to do it, you know, how effective, you know, I might be. That might be a problem.
Thank you, Member. That is a useful suggestion through you, Madam Chair. And it is something that we will consider. Thank you.
Member Kachu.
Madam Chair, through you, I have a similar concern as Member Roberts and even Member Cox. It seems like, it makes me wonder what has been happening over the years, and it seems like we're waiting for a perfect policy before doing something. I think that we're seeing other countries taking advantage of the diaspora, and I wonder what can we do, or what has been happening in the meantime we work on the policy, or are we in usual fashion waiting for the policy to be developed and be perfect? Because you have a lot of Trinbagonians who are outside doing amazing work, running their business, braiding hair, doing sports, doing all sorts. And in today's world, the young people look up to these folks as icons, as influencers. And as we try to teach youngsters that it's not only about 5 CXC subjects, it's about using your trade, using your craft, using your skills to, you know, be who you want to be in this world. I know there are a lot of persons out there who want to give back, who want the opportunity to come to talk to schools, to even partner with local NGOs. I know the Ministry of Trade will do what they have to do as it relates to businesses, but separate and apart from the commercial side of things, what about the social development and education and so on? Do we have a program that a national who's outside can call a number and join the program, and we can share their skills, their knowledge, and so on with local groups, local schools? Is there anything in place at all, or are we waiting on the policy to be developed and completed? What's happening in the meantime? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member. The Ministry has not been at a standstill over the years waiting for a policy. The policy, the National Diaspora Policy, was a recent initiative mandate. But over the years, we have been engaging with the diaspora through different, in different ways. If I just refer to this. We have had different, I wouldn't call them specifically programs, but different ways in which to reach out to the diaspora, to include them in commemorative days, whether it's a religious celebration or national day such as Independence. We reach out in the form of family days. There are missions that have had such engagements. We provide information on opportunities that are of benefit to them if they wish to look back to Trinidad and Tobago to pursue investing, providing information on the, there's a particular program I wanted to mention, but it's not a matter of waiting for a policy to do those things. Those things have been happening. We have done partnerships with members of the diaspora to promote things that they are doing, whether they are authors, they wish to have a book launch. We include them when there are exhibitions that promote business, creative industry from different countries. There are several, but I would not call them, I think what you're looking for is a set program that deals with drawing the diaspora in. We lean also on existing opportunities that other ministries may have on offer. And we are also tapping into new initiatives from other ministries that we've just heard about. So that you mentioned education. We are looking into partnering with the Ministry of Education to involve the diaspora in the Adopt a School program. We think it's a very worthwhile initiative, and we have initiated that. We've had that first, it was informal, but a first discussion with the Ministry of Education to ascertain how the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs could assist and support through involving the diaspora. The diaspora has also been very helpful in certain regards, making offers to assist, for example, in the area of health. During COVID-19, there was one group in particular that reached out to offer assistance. But we're not at a standstill. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Can I have a follow-up question? Sorry.
Follow-up question from Member Kajou, and then Member Cox, and then Member Roberts.
P.S. Through you, Madam Chair, would you say that there is the need for structure and organization as it relates to this matter? Because we are the type of country that depend very heavily on the diaspora. People go away and they want to feel connected and they want to give back. So I don't think that this is a new or novel idea for us, and I don't think it will take too much to set up a desk or something of that sort so that these persons can contact and get the necessary information, or even a program so they can feel a part of something. So I would like to urge your ministry and your officers in your ministry to consider a program. You don't have to make it perfect, but you have to start somewhere. And it sounds very disorganized, very, when they call us, we respond, rather than some sort of structure or some sort of program that pretty much look for persons who are out there doing well and providing the platform for them to give back and serve and even promote Trinidad and Tobago as they do their thing. So that's a major concern, and I want to know what prevents a Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because I understand that yes, you're working on the back of some of the programs from other ministries, but I'm thinking about you as the core ministry with this responsibility to really follow the trends and pay attention to what is happening and responding accordingly. What prevents us from developing a program to start to interact with them or provide a platform in a more formal way rather than this willy-nilly, if I dare say, type of approach? What prevents us?
Thank you, Member. I wouldn't classify our approach as willy-nilly. We have had, over the years, you used the word structured. I wouldn't use the word structured, but there are missions that have scheduled engagements with the diaspora. There are missions that have on their calendar occasions, big occasions, when they would engage the diaspora. There are many Trinidad and Tobago associations out there with which our missions engage. There is outreach both ways. While it's not a set program, it is not willy-nilly, it is not chaotic, it is not anyway. But I take your point that structure is needed. It is something that we have recognized, and even outside of the finalization of the diaspora policy, the ministry is working to have a more organized approach to our engagement with the diaspora. Thank you.
Fox. Thank you, Madam Chair. A spin-off from the questions, I would like to know, do you all have a budget? I don't know if the problem could be budgetary constraints. I just want to know if there's a budget with regards to interacting, promoting, building relationships with the diaspora. Some of the programs that Minister Kojo might have been talking about. Do we have a budget with regards to that area with stakeholders and the diaspora?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. We use certain items under the budget, certain votes that would deal with promotion and publicity, and another vote dealing with meetings and conferences that would cover the various types of engagement that we would pursue along the lines of what you're discussing, you're mentioning. In terms of something specific that says diaspora outreach, nationals outreach, no, we don't. But that is something that we will seek to put in place and of course work with the Ministry of Finance to ensure that that approach is taken, because it would be a worthwhile initiative to have that as part of a source for financial support to anything that we wish to do. I will just add that yes, even though there are votes that we can access to have certain things done, there are financial constraints, because each year the budget requirement increases because things are more expensive. Sometimes there are very novel ways in which we may have to assist nationals. So it is recognized that that would be a very useful thing to have, an assigned budget or vote. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Madam Pierce, I don't want to belabor the point, but it is clear sometimes when people who are not actively involved in something take a look at it, they see different opportunities and different things that could occur. So while I'm not actively involved in what's going on in the ministry, I can see from the outside that what has probably happened is that we've become a little complacent in what we do, and we are happy with ad hoc events. We have a Pan Festival, we have a festival in Toronto, and those are very good, that's okay, but that doesn't form a plan and a program. The financial part, it's not your fault, and everybody has to fight up for what little piece of the pie they get. However, what I am seeing is going forward, that if we could take a look at ourselves and the resources that we have within the ministry and outside, because we're saying we don't have the finances to pay a specific social media practitioner and expert, but really and truly all of us are social media experts, and people who are working there will have skills, and once they are guided with a policy framework of what we are doing, that in all the missions, all the human beings, all the categories of workers that we have, if we expand the team with a mission to, one, identifying talent that is out there, whether it is in human resource, business, sport, advertising, marketing, bringing people to Trinidad to train in different facilities. Whatever you decide, I think we should step back, look at our team, and create a focus that we have a program rather than just happy with, we had a good Pan Festival, which is fine, but what's the end goal? So I think that's what I'm gathering from this. It's a bit piecemeal right now, ad hoc, and we need it to create, because there are possibilities going forward for increased revenue streams, increased opportunities for the country as a whole. We have a lot of resources out there that we could utilize. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Roberts. And P.S., I would just ask whether you have engaged the Ministry of Finance specifically as it relates to diaspora engagement, and if so, whether you can provide that information for us. Because clearly it's an important area, and you are saying that some of these things are not specifically budgeted for. And if it's an important area in moving forward, whether it is something that you can provide for us. Yeah?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. We have not engaged the Ministry of Finance specifically on a budget line item for the diaspora. However, it is something that we propose to do based on the work that we've been doing, gathering the various comments and information from the entities and stakeholders with whom we've engaged to bring us to this point in the process. Yes, just to respond to the members' comments, yes, very valid comments indeed. We have been focused on improving what I referred to earlier as the registration system for nationals abroad, so that we can also have greater reach and greater bits of information, pertinent information that would have us more targeted in gathering the persons who can offer something to the country, have their details, what they wish to offer, if they're in education, if they're in medicine, whichever field. And we recognized that the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs would not on its own be able to go in that direction. So in our policy and in the plan going forward, we have, if you forgive the expression, assignments for various ministries of government and other entities that would have the expertise that we don't have and the focus that we don't have, so that we can serve the diaspora better and have the diaspora's effect on Trinidad and Tobago more impactful and more sustainable. Thank you.
Just, Madam Chair, let me just say, for example, let me give you one example, and I don't want to downcry or downgrade our football team, for example, but clearly we're going into a World Cup qualifying, and we've looked at 10 or 12 matches that we've played, and compared to USA, Canada, Panama, El Salvador, Honduras, we don't seem to have the quality of players. Now, someone will say, boy, so why are you looking at the Ministry of CARICOM Affairs, Foreign and CARICOM Affairs to look? Because if you go out there and find Trini's grandchildren or somebody, grandmother was a Trini and so on, and they're playing professional, you, by your database, well, no matter how good Dwight York is, if we do not improve the caliber of players that we have, the coaching that we had from a young level, and the ability for him to choose from a wide cadre of players, we will not be able to compete. So your ministry could be instrumental in providing the country with a pool of an extra 12 or 15 players that Dwight York and the TTFA could look at. And that in itself, when we play better, we advertise Trinidad and Tobago, spin-off effects, marketing, ESPN, they see our country, our culture, our people, our food, and so on, and there are spin-off effects to it. So it may seem like a small thing, but it could have a big impact.
Thank you, Member Roberts. Member Manning, could you pose your questions now?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The submission identified ways in which the MTI may be further supported in its engagement with the diaspora. A, what are the challenges faced by the ministry in collaborating with overseas missions to connect with the diaspora? And B, expand on the suggested diaspora bond to allow the diaspora to be drivers of economic development and investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Member. Let me just say, as I said in the introduction, my opening statement, the Ministry of Trade and Industry actively utilizes the diaspora resources that reside abroad. And I'll give you three very good, as Member Roberts have given good examples, I'll give you some other practical examples. We recognize at the Ministry that there are significant diaspora communities in some of our major export markets. In fact, if one looks at how trade flows, it is because countries have nationals abroad that form large captive export markets. And therefore, how we approach our export promotion targeting, it is in part aimed at targeting diaspora markets. The Ministry of Trade and Industry, in collaboration with the TTMA, whenever we do a trade mission abroad, the first question we ask are, who are our businesses in those markets? That's the first question we ask. And the second is, who are our diaspora, who are our citizens abroad? Because we ensure that we target those specific resources, those specific persons, those specific companies. And what is also not surprising is we collaborate very actively with the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. In fact, in all of our consular missions abroad, they usually have a very good directory of Trinidad and Tobago nationals in those markets. So we usually go through, of course, PS Foreign Affairs and tap into those resources whenever we do missions.
Excuse me, so there is a database of persons within these areas, within the geographical location of the mission?
Yeah, I know for a fact they do. I mean, I don't know if it's actively updated as readily as often as it should, but there is a database of Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago nationals abroad, and Trinidad and Tobago companies operating in those markets. So that's one area. The second area is we also look, Member Roberts, you talk about identifying nationals. You know, last year was two great examples of us, through our trade and investment promotion activities, identifying Trinidad and Tobago nationals abroad. One is the TTMA with the Ministry of Trade and Industry when they had their annual dinner. We brought in Mark Farrell, who is a Trinidad and Tobago national, founder of 10 to 1 Rums, whose that rum is now is doing exceptionally well through the New York upstate markets and in North America, and we brought him down. And one of the things we did with Mark was get Mark to come and speak to young entrepreneurs in Trinidad, people who are now up and coming, so that they could be inspired by the story of a Trinidad and Tobago national going abroad and becoming a big success, business success. The other one is a really good, funny example. At the last year for International Women's Day, we were scouting for a woman of Trinidad and Tobago national heritage who had commercial success abroad. And somebody brought to our attention that there's, Dr. Wynette Ambrose, a Trinidad and Tobago national living in Washington, D.C., who won Cupcake Wars on the Food Network 3 years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago. And we brought Dr. Ambrose to share her story at our She Trades event last year. So we actively look through former Invest TT, Export TT, to bring Trinidad and Tobago nationals who have had commercial success and kind of come back, share their success stories, partner with Trinidad and Tobago firms, so that people are inspired by those success stories. Just to follow up on your specific question of databases, one of the active projects that our Trinidad and Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago Trade and Investment Promotion Agency is working on is mapping the number of Trinidad and Tobago consumers in those foreign markets. So we know that our exports are going to the US, Canada, etc. One of the things we have not done well over the years is actually pinpoint who are the real buyers and distributors in those markets. So the new agency actually have hired consultants who are drilling down into whether it's the various boroughs of New York, the various communities in Miami, and drilling down to the actual distributors and actual consumers, so that we get a better appreciation of the market size and the untapped potential in those diaspora markets. So we've now you have to go the micro-targeting there, because there's still an exceptional untapped potential that exists outside there to push our export of goods and services. I just start off with that answer,
And part B, dealing with the
diaspora
diaspora
bonds.
bond. Please give us a definition or a short synopsis on exactly how this bond functions.
Well, I mean,
before you expand.
Yeah. Well, we were intrigued when, I should admit, when the question that was posed to us, I said I didn't know what a diaspora bond was. So we did our research. In fact, the IDB and the World Bank have done very good studies recently on the use of diaspora bonds for Caribbean diaspora. So really, a diaspora bond is really what a bond is. It's a fixed income debt instrument that targets a community of nationals. The issuance of these bonds allow home countries to diversify their assets and improve their level of risk management, and it's really aimed at bringing foreign capital into your domestic economy. I did ask a question to our technical staff, which Caribbean country utilizes diaspora bonds? And it's factual. No Caribbean country have actually, at a public sector level, utilized diaspora bonds. It's still a technical discussion taking place. We've seen examples of some private sector, private actors in Jamaica. What's the name of the company? Blue Maho. I think it's a private sector group in Jamaica.
They're a private equity investment firm.
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks. So we haven't seen an example of diaspora bonds, but that would be really for something for the Ministry of Finance to really study in a more in-depth manner.
Thank you so much, because I had several technical questions, but I realized you're not the right person to ask.
Yes.
But thank you very much.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Minister Cox.
Commercial officers and commercial attaches. Could you tell me, just briefly, their role and function, and if what you have is sufficient, and if there are any plans to expand?
Yes, so the placement of commercial officers and attaches in fiscal 2024 was the first time Trinidad and Tobago sought in a, I think the word used earlier was structure, sought in a structured manner to make sure we utilize our commercial diplomacy arsenal in a more focused manner. So Cabinet and, of course, government would have approved the setting up of these commercial offices in strategic export markets of importance to Trinidad and Tobago. We, in fiscal 2025, established commercial offices in Jamaica, in Miami. No surprise, you have a huge diaspora market there, huge export market. A commercial office in Panama, because of the importance of Panama as a regional player in Latin America. A commercial office in the United Kingdom, again, a large diaspora market for TNT nationals, but also a large market in general. And we appointed 2 commercial attaches in Georgetown, Guyana, and Kingston. Again, 2 huge bases for diaspora nationals and a wider export potential market. Those offices are tasked with, among other things, ensuring a greater contact point between local exporters of goods and services and international buyers in those markets. We worked very closely with the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, because in all of those offices and attaches, we said it does not make sense for the Ministry of Trade to go and rent real estate independent of what the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs has. So in all of those instances, we are utilizing the commercial real estate that exists in our overseas missions, and all of our offices are based in the Trinidad and Tobago's overseas missions abroad. And that's how sensible countries do it. They tie their commercial diplomacy with their wider diplomatic apparatus abroad. We have had phenomenal success in the last 12 months over we see the reports that come to us every month. A lot of leads, export and investment leads, have been generated through these offices. A lot of business-to-business meetings have been facilitated by these offices. Cabinet has already approved the appointment of a commercial attaché in China, Beijing, and in South Africa. We are looking very closely at the recruitment for those 2 positions. But we see the offices and attaches as being extremely successful. And again, once we have, we're not waiting on a policy, right? The policy is in action already. We are working with the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, and whatever initiatives and new programs that are developed to target the diaspora markets, of course, our offices abroad would follow up.
No. Okay. We go to the Ministry of Tourism and Tourism, Culture and the Arts. And yes, one of the questions you answered, you said there were ongoing discussions between Tourism Trinidad Limited and ministries such as Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Ministry of Trade and Industry, to create a unified approach toward diaspora engagement, ensuring alignment with national tourism and cultural objectives. Could you give us an update as to where these discussions are and how far you've progressed so far?
Sure. So the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts, as I said in my opening statement, we've been actively promoting tourism and culture experiences in the country. We've actively engaged the diaspora. We've had several initiatives. Just last year, the 2 monumental initiatives I would speak about is really World Steel Pan Day celebration on August 11th, where we would have had steel pan playing in Woodford Square in Trinidad, but simultaneously it was being played in Times Square in New York. It was being played in Miami. We did a taping in London. these are all diaspora markets, and it would have been shown in Trinidad at the same point in time. We also had, through the Trinbago Unified Calypso Organization, TUCO, they would have taken our group to the Apollo in New York, and it was totally sold out. This is 1,500 seats that was totally sold out. The estimates we have, it's probably about 70% of the diaspora was there, and the next 30% was non-nationals really looking to experience local culture. Bringing it back home now, we would have started engaging and speaking with the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs to really see, I mean, we mentioned the diaspora policy, but how best we could have a unified approach through the missions in terms of targeting and bringing more diaspora to the country. Right? I can't say for sure that we are not very advanced in those discussions. We did have some initial discussions, and a lot of it really depended on the diaspora policy, but we have been actively pursuing and promoting in the absence of the policy.
And you said you have not got very far in terms of the discussion, but how do you see it at the end of, I shouldn't say at the end, as you progress? Again, because this is something that you see, not just you, but Trinidad and Tobago sees this as an important area in terms of our development, the involvement of the diaspora. How do you see the progress of that?
So we continue to actively engage in those markets. Our implementing agency, Tourism Trinidad Limited, they have a very active social media campaign. The campaign is No Place Like Home, and they actively engage with diaspora organizations. One of the things we realize that is lacking is really data on diaspora, because we focus on visitor arrivals to Trinidad and Tobago. And it's a little unfortunate that the data we get do not capture the diaspora. So let me explain. Currently, the Central Statistical Office collects the data through the Immigration Division of the Ministry of National Security. The Immigration Division of the Ministry of National Security only captures non-residents, that is persons, visitors, non-nationals, right? So that is persons like Americans, Canadians, non-nationals of Trinidad and Tobago. It does not capture residents living abroad or diaspora that is returning home. Last year for the carnival period, when we looked at the data, we realized that something was a little off, because the CSO was reporting about 29,000 persons visiting for the carnival period. That is only non-nationals. When we went into the Immigration Division and we looked at all the forms in terms of persons that are residents abroad, this is a Trinidad and Tobago national that might be living in the US or might be living in Canada or another country, you had a further 12,000 persons coming in for that carnival period. So for the carnival period 2024, the number of visitors to the country was really 41,000 and not 29,000. So data is very important to us. And we have been working closely with the Ministry of National Security over the last year, as well as the Ministry of Digital Transformation, to implement a solution so that we could capture the data that is relevant to us, that will inform our policy and decision making.
And that is going to be, in other words, you're going to have something that is
Madam
concrete.
Chair,
Yeah.
yes, that will be implemented very soon, and there will be an announcement on that. I cannot make that announcement,
Okay.
but there will be an announcement on that very soon.
Member Cox.
Thank you very much. One or two of the questions that I was going to ask you answered. But I just wanted to say that I think that tourism should have a more active role in the diaspora. I'm not sure what type of relationship you have with foreign affairs in the diaspora, and that is something that should be cultivated. And why I'm saying that, because I am one of the persons who was posted abroad, and I am aware of the deficiency where tourism is concerned with regards to the diaspora members. And I think that that is one of the areas that you all need to, seek a better relationship and be able to operate within that structure. There seems to be a need for a structured approach to the relationship. This should be done. you spoke about data because that's one of the questions I was going to ask. But in order to plan programs and to know if you're meeting your objective, data is very important. So I would think that that should be a prime focus with regards to your programs dealing with the diaspora. So it's just a comment.
Madam Chair, sorry, if I just may respond, I would like my colleague from Tourism Trinidad to really just speak about the engagement with the missions that we've had over the last year, because we really have been sharing a lot of information with them. We've been sending a lot of promotional material, and with the aim of attracting visitors to the country. So, Chanel.
Thank you very much, PS. Very well. Thank you, Member, and through you, Chair. So as PS indicated, through the agency, we have been engaging in 6 main source markets through Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, the missions and consulates in those areas. And we have been providing marketing and destination materials, I would say, in 3 main buckets. So marketing, of course, it's all the buzz. Digital marketing is critical. And so as PS mentioned, we would have launched a No Place Like Home campaign. What that would have done is cultivated a sense of nostalgia, a sense of belonging, not just to the first generation diaspora, but to the 3rd and 4th or the 2nd and 3rd generations who have not yet been home, who have grown up abroad, but they've been seeing the things about our cuisine or culture and want to be enticed to get back home. And so that, of course, would be across platforms, whether it's Twitter, X, Meta, etc. And we've also started to use other platforms where we follow the data, so such as Spotify, etc., to do pointed ads when persons are engaged with other things. And so, for example, for World Steel Pan Festival, those were some of the platforms utilized to have persons engaged. On a second platform, through the missions, we have been engaging with partnerships. And so Toronto Trinbago, of course, we know is a very prominent activation that takes place within that market. And again, through the agency, together with our core ministries, we would have liaised to provide experiences on the ground at the particular couple of days of that event. So whether it's the local sweets and treats, come taste Trinidad and Tobago, the Trinbago Parlor, as we coined it, so persons could come and experience and then get contact information for artisans or persons via which they can get those items, supporting, I guess, the mandate of trade. And then, of course, from the culture and heritage aspect, sharing information there. And I would say the 3rd bucket would be in just general education and awareness. What we would have done last year, we would have provided, through 6 of the core embassies and consulates, tangible maps, brochures, collateral material, little promo items that we know helps go a bit of a way when our mission representatives out there engaging, whether it's press there engaging or school groups. Another example would have been last year supporting Washington, D.C.'s mission there with the Passport D.C. Activation, which is a week or month-long activation that takes place and focuses on cultural awareness. And so Trinidad and Tobago was very prominently represented. And while we weren't able to have tangible physical officers there, again, with the support of those embassies, we would have done that. And one thing I would like to also share, we appreciate that when the diaspora sees our marketing material, they get enticed to come. The last leg of it is the access. So we have been initiating with the airlines some collaborative efforts where we will have specific pointed landed pages on our websites, pointed Google ads, so when persons are willing and interested in a particular event, a particular festival, they can then be navigated to the particular airline to find out exactly where their route at, look at the competitive prices, and so we could, so to speak, close the deal from getting the interest, getting them aware of what's to offer, and getting them here back home. Thank you.
I'm happy to hear this, but you're speaking about within the last year, right? Okay. No, because I wanted to know, because I know all this was not happening. So that's why I asked, you know, so it has to be a recent phenomenon. I'm very happy to hear this because it is much needed. Member Roberts?
The Ministry of Tourism, could you give us some statistics? As you said, you have data mainly from international arrivals, and you're trying to extrapolate diaspora members coming home and so on. What is the position with tour operators over the last 2 years, their work, because the reports we are getting are not showing positive. What are your numbers on arrivals and the benefits to disparate groups and tour operators that are at our key tourism attractions or areas?
Madam Chair, through you. So as I said, the visitor arrivals that we have, the figures that we have it's really non-nationals. It doesn't include the diaspora. I would have only had for the carnival period because I physically had to put staff members to go there and pull immigration forms and count one by one. So it's a very tedious process. So the visitor arrival figures for last year was 319,775 non-nationals. That does not include diaspora. Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago is one country. No, I don't have the separation for Trinidad as opposed to Tobago.
Does that include cruise ships?
No, it does not. It's air arrivals.
And what's the position with the cruise ships and tour operators? What is the policy of the ministry with regards to transportation? I don't need a mic anyway. Transportation, qualification. How is that done? How can people, if I have a transportation company or I have a few maxis and I would like to move tourists around safely, what's the process for that and how is it done?
The Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago really manages the cruise ship complex, and they could provide you the details in terms of registering tour operators for the cruise ship passengers. I could submit it in writing. I could get it from them. I could submit it in writing if you need it, but I don't have it on hand with me.
And finally, Madam Chairperson, what's the role of the ministry in maintaining, ensuring that our key sites are up to the level that we need? I've been getting some reports, for example, and it's a very ticklish issue with our bird sanctuary in Caroni, with an explosion of stray cats that are there. They say a number that I've heard is that there are now about 1,000 stray cats, but the danger to this is that these stray cats eat the baby birds and the eggs and so on, and it's putting our scarlet ibis at risk and so on. Do you all have reports on that? And what do we need to do to protect not only areas like that, but make sure that other areas are amenable to tourists?
Okay. I could speak to the 11 sites under the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts. The Caroni Bird Sanctuary is not under the Ministry of the Tourism, Culture and the Arts. So if that is a real issue that you are saying, you should report it to the relevant authorities. I mean, I just wouldn't sit on that information. I would report it to somebody who could do something about it. So I'll speak to the 11 sites under the ministry if you don't mind, because I can't speak to the Caroni Bird Sanctuary issue, right? We have the Royal Victoria Institute, also known as the National Museum and Art Gallery. It's currently undergoing restoration work, and it's scheduled to be completed. Phase 1 is scheduled to be completed in April of this year. So that's the entire building itself. The Arapita Avenue Enhancement Project was completed in June 2024, and it really serves to beautify and uplift and revitalize the area for the enjoyment of visitors.
We saw reports, so we want to know, since it's under you, that the work that was done was not of the highest order. Is that true? What sort of monitoring systems do you have to ensure that the contractor does it properly?
Thank you for being able to clarify that. I've also seen those reports. We've received those reports, and that matter is being investigated. I know exactly the examples you're referring to in terms of persons slipping on the sidewalks and whatnot. The contractor has been informed of the works, and they are to rectify and provide a solution to it. Yeah. The Galera Lighthouse facility has been upgraded, and our operator to maintain the facility is expected to be engaged this year. The Fort George Historical Complex was upgraded and reopened in August of last year. The Lupino Historical Complex, we would have reconstructed the bridge, and we constructed washrooms, and we also upgraded the entire complex. Work is ongoing on the historical count, jailhouse, and cocoa house. This is expected to be completed in May of this year. Upgrade works are being undertaken at our beaches, Maracas and Las Cuevas. We are building lifeguard towers, and the works are well underway, and we're hopeful that it will be completed before Carnival of this year. The ministry is also pursuing the installation of our automated ticketing system at the Maracas Beach facility. Upgrade works are also ongoing at the La Vigie Paramin lookout.
Final question. There have been reports that at least 2 cruise ships, one of passengers 3,000 capacity and another one 1,500 have canceled because of nervousness or fear because of the state of emergency. One, have you been receiving reports of this being of a concern to travel agents and those who are organizing? One, and two, has the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of CARICOM and Foreign Affairs tried to create some sort of messaging to alleviate as much as possible fears that people may have so that we could compete in this competitive sphere of tourism?
Okay, Madam, PS, we would have those questions answered separately. We want to get back to specifically as it relates to what we are talking here in terms of the diaspora and the diaspora engagement. Those are, I think, very excellent questions for the tourism product generally. And we would actually ask you to provide answers for those questions.
Madam Chair, sorry, if you just permit me 1 minute, I just want to address the cruise ship matter, because that's really very pertinent. It's something that's out in the public domain.
No, but it's not pertinent to this meeting.
Yes.
I'm so guided.
So if you are, provided for us in writing, and we would be think.
Will do.
There are 2 questions that came in on the chat. And one had to do with one person saying that the diaspora, there are diaspora people out there who want to participate in Trinidad and Tobago's activities, but are not having the opportunity. One person said, I and many others have tried to contact well, I'm not sure exactly where the person was talking about that, where that person is living, but contacting the missions and not being able to get through. Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, one of the things that you had mentioned in your submission was about the submission provided a list of complaints concerning persons who wanted to return or re-engage from the diaspora in Trinidad and Tobago, and they were not. One of the things they talked about, unanswered telephone calls. And we are asking, what measures are you taking? Because I suppose this is one of the problems this person was having, trying to contact the ministry, the consulate, and not getting through. Is it something that you're addressing?
PS answers, I just want, because there are some areas that persons are complaining not being able to even get on by email after emailing. I had a family member who emailed a particular embassy for months. And I had somebody call just to find out what was the situation. And the person, my family member, had the right email address. Because I thought it was a wrong email, and this just was, they were not answering. But they were telling you to email, and that's recent. And I am aware, just like Vice Chair is saying, there has been a lot of problems with regards to persons answering the phones at the overseas mission. And what do you all intend to do about that?
Thank you, Member. Madam Vice Chair, I am aware of having received complaints about difficulty reaching the missions. There would have been specific missions. We have encouraged staff to improve basically the professionalism and the customer service. I would like perhaps afterwards, Member, to know what missions, because if I don't know, I can't address it. It would be a general comment or outreach that might not be effective for the specific areas where there are problems. I cannot give a reason why phones are not answered. I cannot give a reason why emails are not responded to. That is very disturbing, because a main reason we are there is to service our diaspora. And if they can't reach us, we cannot help. So
is there any way that you all follow up on these things? Because this was one of the responses that you gave, i.e. you had got that's feedback that you have got from diaspora and lack of response from the consulate in terms of diaspora engagement. So not just this person saying it now on the chat here, that is just confirmation of what you already know. So we are asking, what systems are you putting in place to deal with those issues? Because we're talking engagement.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. There has been already, not specific to the phones not being answered and emails not being answered, but recently there was a meeting, a virtual meeting with our heads of chancery addressing complaints that we have had, and addressed it in a general way so that all missions would hear the same directive in terms of their approach to service and their professional approach to what they are there to do. I will have to investigate why calls are not being answered. It is something I've heard before with regard to specific missions, and I addressed it with those specific missions when I was told which missions were not being responsive. But we will have to look at it in a more holistic way in terms of something more, I think, more in depth to really get to the root of the problem. If it is that there's no one to answer the phone, which I doubt is the problem, and why the emails are not being responded to. Yes, the mission has people on staff, people from Port of Spain, and those who are recruited at the location in the particular city. So it could be a matter of reorganizing how the staff assignments are given. And as was discussed earlier, dedicated persons to have that kind of responsiveness to inquiries from members of the public.
Minister?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the Ministry of Tourism, do we have marketing agents or marketing representatives out there in the major markets to, push Trinidad and Tobago? What are our products? Maybe formulate relationships with airlines, with a discounts or, packages. Do we have those representatives like in North America, Europe, and so on?
Thank you. We work through the Ministry of Foreign and Caribbean Affairs through their overseas missions. So no, we don't have persons employed as marketing representatives.
Would you personally, do you believe, because I certainly do, that that's a specific skill and that is a resource that should be added over and above what the employees at the consulates and so on? And was this ever in place before? And if it was, when did it stop and when can it start back? What's your opinion on marketing Trinidad and Tobago?
Sorry, I'll just let my colleague from Tourism Trinidad respond in terms of the marketing aspect.
Thank you, PS. Thank you, Member, and through you, Madam Chair. Yes, in previous years, there would have been arrangement with marketing reps in source markets. At this point in time, as PS would have indicated, it is not something that formulates part of the plan. However, it is something that is carded as we go onward, trying to activate our strategic plan and also looking at the needs of the market. We do identify that, yes, it is a particular skill set. And whilst there are mediums via digital means that serve useful because persons are connected, we do not underscore the value of having a physical pointed person to be able to facilitate such. So it's something that is under consideration, and we do hope that within the next fiscal, hopefully, plans could commence this year, and within the next fiscal, we can perhaps activate that.
So let me just be clear. We used to have marketing representatives, and at some time it stopped, and now we're trying to rehire or re-engage this marketing aspect. Can I get the undertaking that you and the other representatives will push for that? Because that is something that you need to do your job. Because when we come to grill you and say, why these numbers staying stagnant and so on, you will get in trouble. You would not be able to perform if you are missing such a critical element of marketing Trinidad and Tobago, selling packages and getting human beings down here.
Thank you, member. I'll just acknowledge receipt of that, and it is well noted.
Okay, thank you. It's coming near to the end of our hearing, and I would just like to give each of the PSs opportunity to make closing remarks, and then I would. By the way, no, before I do that, any final questions? No, right. Oh, yes. We just reminded here that there was another, well, the persons have said on the chat that they have wanted to get involved in the missions, in activities as diaspora, and they cannot because they cannot engage. So it's just, we are talking here about what policies we are putting in place to engage the diaspora. We are hearing from diaspora that they're out there, they want to participate, they want to get involved in home, and therefore you have to find means we have to put things in place to more than just a policy being put in place. Make sure that we have formal ways in which they can engage so that they can be involved in the activities that we want them to be involved in, and they also want to be involved in. Formal mechanisms to be put in place. Are you committing to that, Madam PS? Is that one of the things formal engagement, ways of engaging the diaspora, wherever they exist? Well, you will start, of course, with the ones where they are most, but wherever they exist so that they can know how they can actively be involved in our nation's development.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Yes, we are committing to that. One of the things I had said in my opening remarks was a reference to strategic engagement, and that would be more focused, finding out where they are, who they are, what they have to offer. It will involve the expansion of our registration system for those whom we don't know, and I would call it, I guess, a marketing strategy to get to them somehow, to get their attention, and to just continue to encourage those who have been trying to continue to try, don't give up. We will clearly have to have some sort of specific mechanism or communication method that will capture their inquiries, their offers, any communication they have that is outside of the regular system of communication. So perhaps it could be a dedicated, a link or email address. I mean, there's already an email address that they've said no one is responding to, but we clearly have to also look at how we do business internally.
Okay, thank you very much. And could you just give your closing remarks as you are on the floor right now?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the comments from the members. One of the important things that we had done recently is get important feedback from persons who are not part of our environment. And that has been critically important in understanding our own shortcomings and a better appreciation for the needs of the diaspora. And through this process and the process that we have gone through in developing the policy, I think we would be on a better footing to meeting the needs of the diaspora and engaging them in a more effective way. One thing I didn't mention, I know this is the closing comment, but we will also be engaging in a mapping exercise that will help us really know where the members of the diaspora are and how to get to them. So we are already on that track, but thank you.
And you'll give us the information as to how you will be doing that, provide us the information with how you'll be dealing with this mapping exercise?
We can provide information. I think it was mentioned in our submission, but we are also getting some assistance and guidance from the International Organization for Migration. They've been extremely helpful, and we will be, I think we'll get there. Thank you.
Ministry of Trade and Industries.
Yes, thank you, Madam Vice Chair, members. I think we have been clear in our articulation that the role of the diaspora communities are integral to the advancement of Trinidad and Tobago's trade and investment ambitions. As we close, you know, what is running through my mind is it's more than knowing who is out there, but it's actually utilizing these people. And I think one of the things that I'm taking away from this discussion is really that idea of actively scouting for those talents that exist, whether it's in the field of sport, whether it's in the field of business, whether it's as a country, not only knowing who our nationals are out there, but it is having an active strategy to utilize those resources in a very deliberate manner. And I commit on behalf of the Ministry of Trade and Industry and in working with my colleague PSs at Foreign and CARICOM Affairs and Tourism to making sure that that holistic, deliberate, targeted approach is implemented to achieve what we're all trying to do as a country.
Okay. Thank you so much. And PS, Tourism and Culture.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I started by saying, it's always a privilege to be before this committee, and we look forward to the recommendations coming out of the committee and implementing all those recommendations. Thank you.
Okay. On our behalf, we just like to thank you again. We just like to thank the viewing and listening public and also the public for your comments that were passed in the chat. And we look forward to conclusion of this. We will be reviewing to see whether we need to bring you back again. We would be reviewing the responses that we would have got so that we would know exactly what happens from here on. Thank you once again. Good afternoon.